Are you ready?
Yes, and John is here too, just so you know.
All right, cool. All right, don't put him in. Don't bring him in just yet.
Okay.
All right, just tell him to give me like a minute. All right.
All right.
How you doing, everybody, and welcome to the Moffett on the Mic show. We are live as always on a Monday night, courtesy of the A1 Sports Network. I am Craig Moffett, and alongside me, as always, is the one and only Chris Klim.
What's up, Craig?
Klim, you nailed it again this week. Day after the Super Bowl, we are going to be talking to our good friend who's actually waiting to join us right about now. He is one of the bloggers for the Cincy Jungle at SB Nation blog. We're going to bring him in right this minute to talk about Super Bowl 56 and the one and only John Sheeran. Hey, John.
Hey, boys. Long time no talk. Good to see you guys again.
Good to see
What's
you.
going on?
Thanks for coming on such short notice. Listen, I'll be blunt. I thought the game was great. It was just the outcome wasn't, what you wanted, of course. But I thought overall the game was really great. I really had no issues with the play calling of the Bengals or anything. I think it was a case of just Burrow not being protected as well, and just Eli Apple just being a real liability in coverage.
The game was phenomenal. It's one of the better Super Bowls that I remember watching in recent memory. It wasn't like Mahomes-esque where he was just running around the entire game. Like, there was obviously moments of that, but I think just reading about this game before it happened and like looking at all the predictions and whatnot, like these people get paid to go with logic, right? And the logic stated that the Rams defensive line is a obvious and clear mismatch against the Bengals offensive line, and Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. are going to have advantages over Eli Apple and company. And those specific things came to fruition because that's football, right? It's just matchups. From a Bengals lens, it was, okay, this is some type of magical run. They're stringing together these wins based off of some very unsustainable factors that we've only really seen a few times. And usually that sometimes or most of the time ends in a Super Bowl championship. It's right. Like the Giants of 2007, the Ravens of 2012, even the Eagles of 2017. So it was easy to get kind of caught up in that. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to brass tacks, Rams had the more talented team. They were the better team. And they played a phenomenal game despite 2 interceptions from Matthew Stafford. Like, Stafford had those 2 interceptions. The Bengals won the turnover battle, but Stafford still played better than Joe Burrow. He was protected more than Joe Burrow, and those factors typically matter more times than not.
No, it definitely was. I would even say like the Bengals O-line did a pretty good job at least in the first half of containing Aaron Donald, because you saw Joe Mixon getting some good yardage, Joe Burrow making great passes. And then it was really towards the end of the game, you saw that maybe the Bengals O-line was getting maybe a little tired, and that's when you saw Aaron Donald start coming alive. And like you mentioned, on paper that the Rams defensive line is by far the best in the league and should have trounced over the Bengals this whole game. But it really wasn't like that. It didn't seem like,
I think the Bengals came out with a pretty good plan offensively in the first half, and it didn't always lead to points. They were kind of stalled the first couple drives, and then Jamar Chase has one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in the Super Bowl, one-handed 46 yards down the field. But yes, of course, as soon as the second half started, after the T. Higgins touchdown, I think Aaron Donald was getting frustrated that he was getting double-teamed, and I think a testament to Raheem Morris, the defense coordinator for the Rams, coming up with different pressure packages. They're kind of overloading one side and sending 5 guys and trying to confuse the Bengals offensive line, and that's not a very hard task to do. Teams have done it before, and eventually that talent will win. Von Miller got pressure with some inside counters, and Aaron Donald wasn't always up against Hakeem Adeniji on the right side. It was sometimes against Quinn Spain, and Quinn Spain, the left guard, is the guy that he beat on the final play of the game. And Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive player of all time. Like, I'm just gonna say right now, like, we've never seen anyone like him. We might never see anyone like him again. Now he's got a ring to that resume, but the greatest player of all time, making the most clutch play possible, like that's phenomenal from a football sense, right? It's what you like to watch these games for. But it was ultimately, it's just a sign that this just was not sustainable for the Bengals, and they only lasted 2 quarters with that protection. And credit to them for making those 2 quarters count and having a decent first half, but it just wasn't going to hold up.
Hey, John, when Odell Beckham Jr. went down with that injury, because I felt like he was added a huge new element to the Rams passing game, because it just seemed like it was a lot of Cooper Kupp, and then they bring in Beckham late in the season, and he brings a new dynamic to their passing game. When he went down with that injury, did you think for a second that as long as the Bengals just maybe double team Cooper Kupp or anything like that, they have a better shot at winning the game because you're taking a key part out with Beckham's injury?
100%. I think going into the game, I kind of expected Beckham to have a decent game against Apple. Like Odell Beckham Jr.'s like only good games of the Brown, I think, came against the Bengals back in the day. So he's had history of beating this secondary and this defense in general. Him going down was kind of tragic. It was really unfortunate to see, but the Rams were already down their starting tight end in Higbee. They were down now another receiver. They have basically no boundary threats, so the middle of the field was naturally going to be pretty contested with just how the Rams kind of operate their offense. And they kept trying to target like Van Jefferson down the field, and that just wasn't working. That's how Matthew Stafford's first interception ended up being in the end zone. So there was just little from a personnel standpoint that the Rams could do. And I think on that last drive specifically, the drive that Rams fans are going to look at for the rest of their days with 6 minutes to go, it was just Sean McVay saying, okay, we've tried to get other guys involved because Cooper Kupp is being occupied by defenders, but at this point, we either have to involve him or we're just going to lose. Like we can't not have Cooper Kupp be the center of our offense anymore, and that's what they did. And he was the centerpiece of that final drive, and ended up getting targeted against Apple 2 times at the very end. One was the pass interference, one was a touchdown, and I want to say he caught the touchdown that was called back for two penalties that offset.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it was the Cooper Kupp show. He's the offensive player of the year. He's as talented as they come, and like that's a formula for success. Just put your stars in position to win you games, and the Rams deserve credit for that.
Like when it came down to the Bengals' last drive, and it was that 3rd and 1 play call, and then that 4th and 1 play call. Obviously, the game plan is if you're going to run the ball with short yardage like that, give it to Samaje Perine. But, I mean, I know it's real easy to be a Monday morning quarterback after it all, but in reality, don't you think they really should have given the ball to Joe Mixon there? Because he was tearing the ball. He was tearing up the field all day.
See, Chris, I thought you were being sarcastic when you said give it to Samaje Perine. That's what you got to do. So, like,
no. Because they were saying throughout the game, he's the 3rd down back in short yardage situations like that, which I completely get. I understand that's what the Bengals do. But I felt like, you got under a minute left. And first of all, why are you not passing the ball with under a minute left? And why not give the ball to Joe Mixon if you're going to run it?
I think they were confident running in that situation because Mixon has had success running up the middle. Like they were just attacking whatever gap that the Rams didn't have a defensive lineman in. And Mixon was having success. I think he averaged like 5 yards carry in this game.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, like Bengals fans did not want to see Joe Burrow not have the ball on that 4th down. You don't want to go into the offseason with the last play being like a run and it gets stuffed to the line. You don't want to think, oh, what if Joe Burrow had the ball in that situation? And I think in a similar vein, it should have been, if you're going to run it on 3rd down, give it to your best running back. Don't put it in the hands of Samaje Perine, because unfortunately that happened in the first quarter. I think it was the first drive of the game. There was 3rd and 1 and they gave it to Perine and he gets stuffed at the line and then they punt. So that is something that I would have expected Zach Taylor to learn, because he's consistently making mental notes about what doesn't work and making adjustments, but that was not an adjustment that he made. And I understand that Perine has value there, but if Mixon's playing that well and your interior run blocking offensive line, that part of the offensive line is working against some of those fronts, give it to your best running back who you know is going to fall forward and get those extra yards.
Now that we talked about the Super Bowl, let's get into now what the offseason brings for Cincinnati. Can you just give us a background of like how much cap space they have going into this offseason? And is it pretty much a foregone conclusion that they will franchise Jesse Bates?
I will say yes. Like at the very least, Bates is getting tagged. They don't normally like to use the tag. People thought that they were going to do that with either William Jackson or Carl Lawson last year, but I think Bates falls into a category of a guy that they would want to retain. They obviously couldn't get it done last offseason despite their best efforts, and it's really uncommon, I guess, to see extensions in this variety kind of happen without the tag being used. Like if there's going to be an extension, it's going to happen in the summer before like the July 15th deadline. So yes, Bates will be tagged. That'll take up like a 12-13 million in cap space, but they can offset that by releasing Trey Waynes, who is just not a starter anymore. That's just an L that they have to take. Other than that, I think they're 4th right now in effective cap space. They still have to fill out the roster to get 53 guys, but they're top 5 in cap space. It should be around like 50-60 million with Wayne's cut, and then again 10 million or whatever the amount for Bates is. Take that away. They're in position to sign whoever they want, really. And we all know where the biggest needs on this team is, and there's going to be a handful of key re-signings, but they're going to have space to look outside as well.
Wait, hold on.
Speaking of,
Hold on a second. It was Trey Waynes the guy who ran out onto the field.
He was not, because Trey Waynes was active. He was just a special teamer now. That was Vernon Hargraves, who was another first round pick.
The guy who ran out during the interception, who was inactive, he got penalized for it or something.
Just the moment was too big for him. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I saw that afterwards, and I was like, "Who the hell's this practice squad dude just running out onto the field?" Like,
fan at first, I was like, "Wow, Cincinnati just really loves that fan embracement. I like it." And then all of a sudden, he got flagged, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?"
I'm really glad that flag didn't really bite them in the butt, though, because it was only like a 10-yard penalty from like the 20 to the 10. It was like at the very end of the first half. I don't think they would have scored anyways, but still, kind of a silly moment.
Now, speaking of, like Jesse Bates getting re-signed, other than him, who do you think are some guys that the Bengals should re-sign for this upcoming season?
Yeah, they got some things to think about. I look at defensive tackle. Both Larry Ogunjobi and BJ Hill are impending free agents. Ogunjobi just had surgery for, I believe, his ankle or foot that he injured in the wild card round. I think BJ Hill was honestly the more consistent player when he played, and Ogunjobi started, and Hill was more of a rotational guy. But I think Hill has shown a lot in the postseason what he can do as a starter. So both those guys are up. I think at least one gets brought back, probably not two. And then on offensive line, you have Quinton Spain and Riley Reef who are up. Reef is going to be 33 years old, I believe, in like December, or he just turned 33. And I don't know if you can really trust him to hold up at right tackle for another season. So maybe they look at him as like an option at right guard. Quinton Spain is also like 31, 32 years old, and he did not have a very good game against the Rams. And honestly, he's just not been very good towards the latter half of the season. So that's a decision they have to make. They love him in the locker room, but I don't think that his on-field play is enough to give him like a starting contract, if you will. He might just come back on like a competitive base. Other than that, there's not a ton of impending free agents that they have, because this is like the last year where their bad draft classes are up for extensions or up for new contracts. Like this is like the 2018 draft class that's like up for new deals, and that draft class is more or less gone. And Eli Apple's also up, but I don't think he's going to be necessarily a hot commodity, if you will. So I don't think there's much pressure to bring him back. So other than Bates and maybe, Hill and maybe Reef, there's not a lot of high profile guys that are going to command a lot of money here.
One guy that I was a really big fan of just more for his toughness is CJ Uzama. Coming back from a sprained MCL right before the Super Bowl. I think he's a pending free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Does he fit into the Bengals' plans? Do you see them making him a priority, even though they have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase as well?
I feel bad for forgetting him, but you're absolutely right. He's also a free agent, and I think his knee is fine. I don't think it's going to impact how teams view him medically in free agency, but it would be hard pressed for me to imagine him not coming back to the Bengals. I think he just loves being here. I think right now he's the voice of that locker room. He just means a lot to the team and the fan base in general. He's only going to be 29 years old this year. He was pretty productive, albeit in more of a limited role when you have those three receivers. But I do think that he will come back on more of a team-friendly deal. I'm not sure that maxing out his financial earnings right now is his top priority. I think he realizes that this is one of his best chances to be on a contender, and he's obviously well-loved. So I do see him being brought back, not on like a lucrative deal by any means, though.
Loyal fan of the show, Mike Laws commented, P. Ryan had 2 rush attempts the entire playoffs before the 3rd and 1. Zach Taylor's brain shut off in the second half. Oof.
Harsh.
That is harsh. That is very harsh. But I mean, again, like I said it 5 minutes ago, I believe, and I think all Bengals fans believe, if you're at least going to run the ball there, put it in Joe Mixon's hands.
Okay, but I'm going to counter that with this notion. Maybe, John, whether you agree or disagree, it's just another one of those. If it works, he's a genius. If it doesn't, he's going to get vilified. Mm-hmm. Is that it? I mean, so if he doesn't go to Mixon, but P. Ryan, listen, I think P. Ryan was capable. I don't think it's not like you just plucked him off the street right before the Super Bowl.
No, you're right. Yeah, but I mean, but like, again, like, how do you not put it in the hands of your best player? Like, I just don't know.
But you're just thinking like a hindsight coach, though. Come on.
Like I said, I hate being the Monday morning quarterback. I really hate being that guy. But if I was a Bengals fan, I'd be like, what the? like, what's going on? Like, why is Joe Burrow not passing the ball with under a minute left? If we're going to run the ball, why are we not giving it to Joe Mixon? Like, that's the way I look at it.
You weren't getting the ball there.
Hold on. So they were running because I think they had 2 timeouts left and they were just outside of field goal range. So I don't think the time was necessary. Like, I think at that point they were just thinking about a field goal and just getting a yard. But I think I'm agreeing with Craig here. I think the gripes with Taylor in the second half or okay, everyone is cognizant that Aaron Donald is starting to come alive here. Von Miller is obviously still there. Leonard Floyd is still there. Your offensive line is getting beaten, battered. I think they ran 3 play action plays and maybe 1 screen the entire game. And they haven't been great in those 2 areas, but those are 2 areas that conventional wisdom states is a natural way to nullify or slow down a pass rush. And they didn't really do that in the first half and it worked, but obviously the Rams made adjustments as we just talked about. So those should have been adjustments that you should have made in the second half. That is what I think where the criticism for Taylor comes in, not necessarily on some hindsight play calling in situations like that.
Okay.
So now heading into next year, John, you know, the Bengals AFC representative for the Super Bowl. Now they go into the AFC North as pretty much the clear-cut favorite to win that division at least. They're not even projected to go to the Super Bowl next year because they're already doing the expectations. And one team that came out of left field today was the Broncos, and I can only assume that's in the event they get Aaron Rodgers. Now that the Bengals have arrived and now you see Jamar Chase and, you know, Joe Burrow, and do you expect teams next year to scheme for them differently, where it could result in the Bengals possibly taking a step back because teams now know how to prep for them, even though they have 3 really talented receivers and 1 really talented running back in Joe Mixon?
I think that's an interesting point because we did see kind of a lull in the middle of the season after Chase kind of took people by storm and they had to adjust for that. I think with that, the counter is you're assuming that the offensive line is going to be at least a little bit better, and that's just not saying that much. So I think just having a decent offensive line, that's got to be the top priority this season. That would do wonders just for the overall consistency of the offense because the offense relied so heavily on these explosive plays and Chase and then Higgins coming alive. And we saw it in this game, like their 2 touchdown drives, I think were, or at least one of them. One of them was a deep Higgins touchdown, and then there was a lot of explosive plays in this game alone when the pass protection couldn't hold up for an entire game. So I think a better offensive line helps out just the overall efficiency of your passing game and just the consistency in general. But you still have those weapons in Chase and Higgins, and it's hard to really take both of those guys away. As we just saw, Jalen Ramsey had troubles with both of them. So naturally, the more tape is out on these guys, the more acclimated other opposing defenses are going to be. But I think the counter to that is that the Bengals offense is kind of just getting started. They're far from plateau. They could be a lot better. And a lot of that comes from just offensive line. If you have at least 5 competent guys up there that, you know, opposing defenses can't say, okay, yeah, this is a major weakness that we're going to exploit and our game plan is going to be around that. I think that does change the overall plans a little bit.
You know, when we last had you on, me and Craig were very adamant about the Bengals drafting Penny Sewell. You were adamant about the Bengals drafting Jamar Chase. Boy, I mean, it looks like me and Craig were both wrong. But now, going into the offseason, how do you address the offensive line in the free agency, or do you take that 31st overall pick and draft an offensive lineman there?
Well, you certainly can't expect a Penei Sewell type player at 31.
Right.
I know next to nothing about this class aside from like Evan Neal and Tyler Lindenbaum, and I'm assuming both those guys are going to be well off the board by then. So it's got to come in free agency first and foremost. I don't know very many quality guys on the market, like maybe Teron Armstead, maybe some other guys, but you got to remember Riley Reif wasn't a free agent in the beginning of the offseason. He was cut by the Minnesota Vikings, and those are guys that you got to watch for the Bengals, on top of the fact that they're potentially quality names that could be had for cheap. They also don't count against the compensatory pick formula, which they value that as well. So as this offseason progresses, there's going to be some new names that are going to be available on the market. And I think that's where you have to keep an eye on for the Bengals specifically. But yeah, they can't wait until the draft to find their first starter on offensive line. But even, you know, regardless of what they do in free agency, you can definitely bet that offensive line is one of the favorite positions to be taking it with the first round pick. It's just not going to be far from the only thing, though.
John, I can't take credit for this next question I have for you because I saw it in an article, but I wanted to, now that it just came to my mind, I wanted to address it with you. Being as though the Bengals just made it to the Super Bowl, and although they didn't come up victorious, just making it there, do you think the Bengals fans have forgiven Mike Brown for all the past failures of the franchise?
I was thinking about this. Like, I don't know if just 1 year is enough. It's kind of it's one angle to the whole thing. Like, this season, in my mind, will be remembered as like they arrived and they eliminated a lot of stigma and narratives about the franchise in general. I don't think anything necessarily has changed with Mike Brown. He found a quarterback that can carry the team. He built a good enough team around him. They found themselves in the spot. They are playing, quote unquote, with house money and everything. So maybe not necessarily a lot has changed with Mike, but I think just in general, like it feels like this is how I would imagine people thought about the Bengals in the 80s when they weren't known for the longest playoff drought. When they made 2 Super Bowls in that decade, they were far from a dynasty because obviously they didn't win a Super Bowl, but they were competitive. They were relevant. They had legitimate players. And I think that's how everyone should view this team now. This team is no longer afraid of the big moment. They're not going to crap the bed in primetime games. They're not going to ignore free agency completely. They've eliminated a lot of those narratives, and they have put out valid reasons to take them seriously for years to come because they still have Burrow. They still have these guys who are young and under contract. So maybe not necessarily for Mike Brown, but I think just in general, fans of this team realize that this team is legit. They're going to be good for a decent while now, and they're not like the teams of the last 30 years.
So one of the things that came out on social media the past week leading up to the Super Bowl is that, everyone's giving Joe Burrow these crazy ass nicknames. I want to get your opinion on which one's your favorite.
I would say Joe Burr, but I can't roll my R's, so I naturally have to go with Joe Shiesty, which is also a great nickname. Shout out Trap House Sports, who's the guy who originated most of these names. He coined them, and I believe in November after the Bengals played the Steelers, we wrote an article crediting him. Now that the Bengals were topical and relevant, we wanted to get his name out there. But yeah, Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, if you will. I think better than Joey Franchise and Jackpot Joey. So Joe Shiesty for me.
All right, John, I have to ask, did you have a Super Bowl party yesterday? And second part of the question is, was there Skyline Chili involved?
Yes, that was my question too.
So
I wanted to steal it
from Klim because Klim is always so eager to ask you a Skyline Chili question. You know what? This is my show, and I'm going to ask the Skyline Chili question on this one. Sorry, Klim.
It's not an interview with John unless we talk about Skyline Chili at some point.
No, I was prepared for this. So I ended up going near or in downtown because I wanted to, in the event that they won, be with everyone at the bars for that celebration. So my friend lives in downtown Cincinnati, and I watched the game with him, his dad, and then his dad's friend and someone else. So it was maybe like 4 or 5, 6 of us, and they did have they just made Skyline out of a can. We just made our own conies and whatnot. So did have Skyline, not necessarily a party though.
That was it. That was my question, Craig. You took it. I still have the can here still. Still have my unopened. So I don't know how good it is since the last time I bought it months ago.
Right, you know what? Now I do. This will be my last question. With a vision, did you get a vision in your head leading up to the game of if they won, you would just go crazy in the streets of Cincinnati, or were you just yeah, they won, great?
Look, man, all bets were off if they won. I don't know what I was going to do, but I was going to enjoy every minute of it. The entire city went bonkers when they won a playoff game. I could only imagine what they were going to do when they won a Super Bowl. But yeah, that was the plan. It was 10 degrees outside in Cincinnati. It was snowing a little bit, but no one gave a rat's rear end. They were already hyping up on the streets, watching the game outdoors, and yeah, I really wanted that for the city, and I don't think this is going to be the last time that they get that chance to get that done.
No, same here. I think they're really on. They really have turned the corner with Burrow and Chase and everything. And I mean, they're going to be the favorites for the AFC North, but I mean, I think they'll definitely have at least another Super Bowl in them, maybe more if they keep this core intact. But it was definitely a great run. I really had no issues with the way Taylor called that game yesterday. I know he was criticized in the beginning. I was driving home. I missed the first quarter because I was doing something else, so I was listening to it on my way home, and he's being criticized on the radio for going for it on 4th and 1, I think on the opening drive of the game. And I'm like, yeah. Why are you criticizing him? I would have done the same thing. Go big or go home. It's the Super Bowl.
He went for 4th down later, and then it didn't end up in a touchdown, but it still ended up in a field goal. But that's the mindset, and people don't want him to be conservative, but of course it's the Brandon Staley effect. If you're too aggressive and it doesn't work out, then you get flamed for it too. So I don't think it was a terrible Zach Taylor game. There's obviously some gripes, but I think he coached well enough to win. And if he has a better offensive line, I think he can get the job done.
All right. Hey, John, listen, man, thank you for coming on our show on such short notice to talk some Bengals football. Always love having you on, and really appreciate it. And I promise the next time you're on, no more Skyline Chili questions, all right?
It's no gripe with me. Like, it's just keep plugging it, man. Like, it's Cincinnati pride. So I appreciate you guys.
All right, man. Take care, John. It was good having you on as always, all right?
See you guys.
All right. That was the one and only John Sheeran. You could check out his work on the Cincy Jungle SB Nation blog. Very good friend of the show, and we really appreciate him coming on to talk Super Bowl 56 with us from the Bengals perspective. Next time when we have to try to get Christine on from the Rams perspective.
Yes, that would have been to have them both side by side. That would have been
good. I got her on today. I didn't have a chance to do it, but if I had her on today, that would have been great. But here's the funny thing. We love John's great. John's the man. He's so calm, cool, and collected after a loss. Like, I always said that if the Jets ever made a Super Bowl, I would have to watch it in a padded cell.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way I could watch it, like, with anything within throwing distance, right? Or anything sharp or anything like that. I'd have to watch it in a padded cell because it would just be too crazy. Like, I don't even know if I could watch a Jets Super Bowl for that reason.
I'm thinking, like, you just said it now, and I usually have everyone come over my house for the Super Bowl. And if the Jets were in the Super Bowl, like, usually, like, everyone's talking, people have their side conversations while the rest of us really watch the game. If that's the case, like, the Jets are in the Super Bowl, there is absolutely no side talks. There is no, like, oh, what do you want? No, there's nothing of that. I'm not missing a second of football during that day. Like, and oh my, I don't even know. I can't even contemplate if the Jets were to lose. Like, this is
like, I would literally, like, honestly, I don't know if I would have a house if the Jets lost the Super Bowl. Like, I would probably put my fist through, like, the foundation of the house.
Oh my God.
Like, there's no way I could, like, when the Jets were in the last time Jets were in the playoffs in 2010, right? I went to a bar down the street every night because I knew that if I watched it, and I was living with my in-laws at the time. We had just bought our house, but we hadn't been able to move in yet, so we were living with my in-laws. And my in-laws had never seen me as, like, a rabid Jets fan. That's why 99 times out of 100, I don't watch games live because I just get too into it,
Right.
Like, like, if I could tell you the amount of times I've banged my recliner chair so bad that, like, the arm is, like, practically falling off. But the thing with me is, like, I don't know how I would react if the Jets lost in a Super Bowl.
I don't know how I would react if the Jets won a Super Bowl.
I don't think they would ever. I don't know how I would react if the Jets got to the Super Bowl. Like, let's not even talk about winning or losing. Like, if they actually got to the Super Bowl, where if I was watching Super Bowl coverage on fucking media day and I see Zach Wilson answering questions or Elijah Moore, and I'm like, are they really here right now?
Oh, I'm going to overanalyze everything, like, leading up to the Super Bowl, like down to the T of, like, why did you have a cheeseburger the day before the Super Bowl? Like, what the fuck's the matter with you?
Listen, when I went to the NLCS at Shea Stadium in 2006, Mets Cardinals, Beltran, I was at that game when Beltran struck out. Right? And, like,
crazy.
First of all, I've never taken my fist to a Shea Stadium chair harder in my life. Like, my hand was bleeding. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, I was so angry and just so frustrated, right? It was the most miserable train ride home on the LIRR. It was silent. It was absolutely silent, right? And then, like, the next day I go to work and my boss knew, because my boss is a Yankee fan, but, like, he wasn't trying to rub it in. Like, he just knew I went to the game, and he's like, look, I'm going to leave you alone today. He was like, if you need anything, you come talk to me whenever you want. He's like, I get it. He just kind of had this look on his face like, I get it. This is just not going to be your day, so if I got that just off an NLCS game, imagine a team that hasn't been to the Super Bowl since '69 goes to the fucking Super Bowl. I'm going to be like, oh my God. I was like, I couldn't. I don't think I could.
I was at work on Saturday, and I was talking to my buddy, and we were just like, I was just telling him, like, I just want in my lifetime to experience a Jets, Mets World Championship. I don't really care what I just need to experience something because we got little tastes of it. Like we got it in 06 with the NLCS. We got it in 2015 with the World Series. We got it in 2010 and 2011 with the Jets. But like now that like I'm an adult now, and like I'm way more into the sports than I was when I was in middle school and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I like, in going back to what you said, I don't know how I would react. One, to the Jets making the Super Bowl. Two, the Jets winning the Super Bowl, or even three, the Jets losing the Super Bowl. Like I would literally need to be like, when you mentioned the 06 NLCS, that was the first time I've ever cried during a sports game because I'm like, they were this close to going to the World Series.
And the thing was, I think those Rex Ryan teams could have gone to the Super Bowl. But I also think that they got so cocky and so arrogant that that's how it got away from them at the end of the day.
We have two more comments. Mike Laws was listening to Cincy Talk Radio. The fans were happy to be there. What pathetic losers.
Look, Mike, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, but like, there's a weird like sense of like, oh yeah, it's good to be there. And, it's like the person who doesn't win the Academy Award for like best actor, and they say, "Oh, it's just great to be nominated." No, it isn't. It's not great to be nominated.
No, yeah, exactly. I think that's what Mike is trying to say. Like, you're in the Super Bowl. I want to win the Super Bowl. I don't care how happy I am to be there. I want to win.
Like it's like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. It's like no, it's you have to win it. Like you can't just accept being there. The Buffalo Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost all 4. By the second one, I'd have been like, no, like it's not good to just be there. No, but Buffalo people are too nice, and we shout out to our Buffalo friend Jamie D'Amico, of course, but they're too nice. I can't.
Mike also commented, "Imagine Jets lose the Super Bowl and LaMichael Pirine got the final 2 targets of the game."
I don't think LaMichael Pirine will be on this. It would be a very point of this offense, but I see what he's saying.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. On a side note, to Mike Laws, what is it with you and the last name Pirine?
I think it was.
Now you're ripping LaMichael Pirine.
I think it's just the Pirine brothers in general. But like,
I don't know. I mean,
but that's what I'm trying to say though. Like, how can you not? Like, I understand that he's the short yardage running back, and that's the plan, and I get it. I get that's what they draw up. They did, but it was like what John said. The second half adjustments really didn't change. He didn't really make adjustments.
I get what you're saying, and I listen. I'm not saying don't give the ball to Mixon. Okay, far from it. Okay, however, again, if it works, what's exactly the shit that Saleh would say after president. If it works, he's a genius. If it doesn't work, he's going to be the GOAT. He's going to be he's going to be the jackass. That's pretty much what it is. That's exactly how it is. And when you're coaching, you have to make those tough decisions. It's like when a manager decides, you know what, I'm going to pull Jacob deGrom with a 1-run lead, but he's struck out 14 guys, but I'm going to take him out of the game. You run the risk. There's always risk to these situations. You can't avoid that.
Yeah.
But I don't have an issue either way, because the thing is like if you had plucked, like for example, to piggyback off Mike's last comment, if LaMichael Pirine had been activated and you ran him, okay, then I understand the frustration. But Sammy Pirine has been a pretty decent ball carrier for the Bengals. You should have confidence in him. I mean, that's what coaches do. Right? Fans have no confidence in anybody, but coaches have to have confidence in everybody. Fans have no confidence in anybody. If they've never heard of him or they're not on FanDuel at the top of the the money, the money thing, they never heard of the guy. No, you can't give it to him.
So, just like I said, like going back to the Jets.
John was so cool, calm, and collected, and that's what we love about him. But man, New Yorkers, can you imagine if the Jets lost the Super Bowl?
If that was the Jets, I was gonna say if that was the Jets yesterday, we wouldn't be doing a show today. I can guarantee you that. There's no way I could talk about this the next day.
But I can honestly predict that if the Jets lost the Super Bowl, I would predict one of the greatest mass suicides of all time. Because just wouldn't be able to live with themselves anymore because they basically say, "Oh, this is it. This is the peak. We can't go any further.
Like I just don't get it. I really I don't know. Like I'm convinced that
all you would hear is if the Jets lost the Super Bowl, all you hear is like Geronimo. Right? Yeah. It's not what you hear.
Like the combination of Jets, like the hybrid of Jets and Mets fans, like me and you and my friend Mike, I know is a Mets and Jets fan. Like we suffer so much, man. It's not like. It's like, oh, yeah, we were in the World Series in 2015. Epic decline right after that. Oh, yeah, the Jets made the AFC Championship game back-to-back years. Epic decline after that. Like, we can't wait. It can't be consistent with us. It's like, okay, yeah, at least we're making the playoffs, or at least we're doing this, we're doing that. No, it's either one end of the spectrum for the Mets and Jets or one of the other end for the Mets and Jets. It's never.
Well, the thing is, it's also an organizational thing, right? Because with the Jets, for example, every time the Jets, you want to see the Jets build through the draft. They're always, Jake's one of our favorites. We got to get him back on the show, by the way. What's that?
I said yes.
Oh. Jake always was really big on talking about timelines, how timelines need to fit. And the Jets always seem to never have their timelines fit because you had a new coach, but then you had a GM who was on the verge of getting fired. Okay, so the GM that's going to about to get canned now has to spend all this money to keep the fan base happy so he can keep his job. But in reality, it's not the way to go.
Yeah,
this is the first time in a long time where coach and GM were basically brought together at the same time. Joe Douglas brought in his coach. He brought in Robert Saleh. Okay, that's it. And now they're on the same wavelength. And you see the results from the 2021 draft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the jury's still out on Zach Wilson, so I agree with that. I'm not gonna anoint Zach Wilson an amazing quarterback yet. I think he has shown some flashes of being a good quarterback, though. But every time Elijah Moore was on the field, he was dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Every time, more times than not, Michael Carter was a dangerous player on the field. And that's how you build. And Elijah Vera Tucker could be one of the top guards in the league within 2 years.
No, I definitely agree. Like other than Zach Wilson, if you can give me a healthy seasons of Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, whoever we add in the offseason, if everyone can stay healthy, even Zach to an extent, because Zach missed a couple games this season.
Yeah.
If everyone can stay healthy, I have full confidence that the Jets will be contending for a second place this year in the East. I fully believe that. And if Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh make the right moves this offseason, which again, I fully believe they will.
Joe Douglas is going to be under a little bit more pressure this year, I think. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a vacation for Joe Douglas. I think Joe Douglas is going to be under some pressure especially from a guy like Woody, who wants to see this team win, and he wants to see and Woody likes getting big fish into this team. So I think he's not going to force Joe Douglas to spend like lucrative amounts of money, but I definitely think he's going to basically tell Joe, like, listen, you need to start getting some studs in here.
Yeah. And,
I love what you're doing with the draft, and there's nothing wrong with Woody saying that either. So, if Woody comes to Joe and say, listen, I love this draft class. You guys did a phenomenal job. We have great picks coming up. That being said, you got to start bringing in some big time players though too.
And that's like I've mentioned it on shows prior that, this is how they built that 2009-2010 roster. They drafted well in the draft. We saw guys like Nick Mangold, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, David Harris, Darrelle Revis. You had a foundation of guys to build around. And now you're kind of doing the same thing here, but now we got to go out and get the Jesse Bates of the world, the Brandon Scherfs of the world. It's something we could build this team with these young guys, because this team is very young, and you get, like I said, you get a guy like Brandon Scherf to help out on the guard position. You get a guy like Jesse Bates to help out at safety. You get a guy like Hassan Reddick for an outside linebacker position. These are guys you can build along with drafting guys as well, and to go with the young rookies that we had.
Well, and again, and talking about the Jets with their draft picks this year, because now the offseason officially begins, right? Everybody's back to 0-0 and everything and whatever. number one, I am so sick and tired of seeing mock drafts that have the Jets taking Kyle Hamilton or Derek Stingley at 4.
No, can't do it.
It's not going to happen. Not at all. I don't care how much Joe Douglas, there's reports that he loves him and everything. It's not going to happen. They are not going to take a safety 4th overall when they can easily beef up the offensive line with a player like Ekwonu from NC State, maybe even Evan Neal. Maybe there's even some talk now that Kayvon Thibodeau is falling, okay? Or even Charles Cross, okay? It's not an option at number 4 to take Kyle Hamilton or take Derek Stingley. It's not going to happen. I would be stunned if the Jets go the secondary route, number 4 overall. And I don't expect them to go number 10 overall, because what I think is going to happen with the 10th pick is they're going to hope that one of the teams trades up for the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to try to move down. That's my prediction right off the bat. I think if Washington feels threatened by the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up for a quarterback, or maybe the Jets trade up with Carolina because Carolina wants to move down and get more picks that they lost thanks to the Darnold trade, could be a possibility. I wouldn't trade with Carolina, but unless you have somebody you absolutely positively love in this draft to move up.
Mike Laws commented again, Kyle Hamilton equals punch. Yes, because me and him have been talking about, he's like, Klim, if we draft Kyle Hamilton, I'm going to fist fight you. I'm like, that's not my fault if we draft Kyle Hamilton. I don't want Kyle Hamilton whatsoever. But he keeps saying he's going to fist fight me if we draft Kyle Hamilton.
Was Mike Laws a Creative Pro?
Yes, he was. Yes,
okay.
He was.
So the next time you got to point him out to me.
All right, I got you. I got you. But to even go with that, like, and I know Mike, if he's watching and he'll agree with me when I say this or put it in the comments, that I have no problems with Jets not trading back. And I don't care if they do trade back, because I'm okay with the way
I love draft picks, so I love a trade down. I'm a big fan of the trade down.
The thing is, me and Mike have been in talks about this. I think I'm done with Denzel Mims, man. I can't. I know what you're gonna say. It's like it's been 2 years.
This is a very touchy subject with Jet fans, and I'm going to be very blunt on this one. Okay, Jet fans are a laugh riot because we finally get the depth that we want.
Yeah.
In the offseason, we get Jamison Crowder. We have Corey Davis. We have Elijah Moore. We have Keelan Cole.
Braxton Berrios, all these guys.
Braxton Berrios, okay? This is what I mean about Jet fans. And Jet fans, stay classy, because this is the funniest part about you guys. You still find the things to bitch and moan about. You bitch and moan way too much. Love you guys, but I'm not wrong on this one, okay? The whole talk after we have all this depth at wide receiver, which we didn't have a year ago. Remember when Jet fans were bitching and complaining about starting Vincent Smith and Josh Malone last year for Darnold? Finally get the depth, still bitching. And what are you bitching about? That Denzel Mims isn't playing. That Denzel Mims isn't seeing the field. And it's insane. And the thing is Saleh basically said it. He's not good enough. Like, Saleh basically told you exactly what it was. And who am I to question of a head football coach that ran a top 5 defense? Now, me personally, I don't think Douglas – no, I totally disagree with Mike, with your boy, because there's a lot of other guys who are bad. Okay? I mean, and half of them play for the Jets. So that only proves my point. Okay, they haven't gotten – that's not the worst draft pick, the worst receiver ever, because half of them have played on the Jets. But here's the thing about Joe Douglas. He's not going to trade Denzel Mims for crap.
Mm-hmm.
He would rather see Denzel Mims come into training camp for a shot at the team than trade him for some bullshit 7th-round pick that's going to be conditional because he's got to make the team first of all. And everything. He drafted this guy in the 2nd round in 2020. I don't see a scenario where he gets rid of Denzel Mims.
That's what I was telling Mike. I was telling him that, and
no trade value whatsoever. Yes,
no, you're absolutely right. The only thing that he could possibly do is cut him. But at that point, it's like we're paying him peanuts as it is. So let him earn his way onto the field.
He's
if he's
his rookie contract.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. I would say though, like this is his last year though. If he can't make or break this year, then it's done. I say we cut him, try and trade him, whatever we can get out of him. If we could, if not, cut his ass because he stinks. He's not that good. I have no problems keeping him on the roster this year just because of the fact we're losing Keelan Cole. We don't know if we're going to sign back Braxton Berrios yet. Jamison Crowder is gone. And Elijah Moore and Corey Davis were both highly injured last year.
Meany's already talking shit that Berrios is looking at a deal. He wants a deal about worth $9 million a year. He is not going to get that from any team. I love Braxton Berrios, but I'm not paying $9 million a year for him.
That was I would pay Braxton Berrios $9 million.
But you're not but that doesn't make you a good general manager, though. That's my point. You're going to give first of all, if you're paying a guy $9 million a year, then you got to put him on the field. He's got to start. He can't just be a number 4 receiver. Who the hell pays a number 4 receiver $9 million a year? Oh yeah, Chris Klim. So, I mean, like, you can't. There's so many other guys out there that are better than Braxton Berrios. I love Braxton Berrios. I want him back because I want to buy a freaking Berrios jersey.
Oh, right? I love a Berrios jersey.
But I'm not paying the guy $9 million a year, and I'm sorry, neither is Joe Judge. Does Mike agree with me that Klim is the only guy who would pay Braxton Berrios $9 million?
Yes, he's agreeing with you on that part. Because, I look. This is the way I was looking at it.
All right, let me ask you a question. Did Mike tell you to put your credit card in to give to Caster at the event?
No, he did not. He was actually telling me, don't give him any money. He's
a smart guy. Like, Mike knows what he's talking about, man.
No, Mike was like, we were literally driving up to Cap that night, and he was like, you better not give him any fucking money this time.
I told Keith, I go, watch Klim give him the fucking shit out of the ambulance or something like that he drives.
I was like, I'm not giving him anything. The only reason I gave him my credit card was because I knew I had to get it back at some point. And then he started walking away. I was like, I'm certainly going to need my credit card.
I would never give Max Caster anything. Unless it was counterfeit money.
He's not getting no money. I'm giving him. I will bring Monopoly money with me next time.
You should tell him you owe me $20. Next time he walks by, you should say that. You should be like, "Yo, you owe me $20 from the last Cap event."
Bro, like the only reason I did like the $20 because I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a good rise out of it. Maybe I'll be part of the show now. No, I was way off. Like the $20 did not get anything going for him.
I have a bold prediction though for this Jets offseason. It's not really a bold prediction, but I think it's definitely going to.
Tough moment.
What do you write?
Tough moment. Yeah, it was tough. Yeah. It was real tough.
Yeah, to watch your freaking bank account, Max Caster clean out your freaking bank account.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to make a prediction that I think that Joe Douglas is going to entertain offers from Mike White.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be teams that want him. I'm starting to get. And you know who I'm putting at the top of the list?
Oh,
Colts.
I wouldn't doubt because look,
segues into our next story. By the way,
I was going to say before we get into the Carson Wentz news and what's been going on with him, Mike White pulled a Matt Flynn. If we don't remember what happened with Matt Flynn 10 years ago or 11 years ago, whatever. Came in for the last 2 games of the season when I think Aaron Rodgers was like hurt or something like that, and he played his ass off. Matt Flynn played his ass off, earned himself like a $12 million contract in Seattle, and basically robbed Seattle because Seattle chose Russell Wilson over him. This is what Mike White is going to do. He played good enough in the 2 games he played where it's like, oh shit, I might want Mike White, and people will probably trade a 5th-round pick for Mike White rather than drafting.
I love Mike White. So I love the story last year and everything. Do I think that I think the Jets gave him a chance. Okay, like I don't think that they just totally buried him as soon as Zach came back or whatever. I think they definitely gave him a shot. He played well in the Cincinnati game, of course, got them a win. I thought he actually played well in the Indianapolis game before he got hurt. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And he didn't play good against Buffalo. And there's nothing you can do about that at this point. The thing is right now, there's not a lot of good veteran quarterbacks out there this year.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, now that's pretty damning to the position if Mike White could fetch you a pretty decent pick if you decide to trade him. Now, there's a report going around that Joe Douglas could put a second-round tender on him, which would keep him in New York because no one's going to give him a freaking second-round pick.
Right.
But then you get into how desperate these teams start to get. Because, again, Deshaun Watson, if you trade for Deshaun Watson at this point, you're gonna have to deal with the fact that he's going to get suspended. So you're going to lose him for at least 8 games. All right? Then on top of that, Russell Wilson. We don't really know what his status is right now in Seattle. He says he wants to stay. A lot of people think he wants to go. No one really knows the truth with regards to Russell Wilson. And then the only other guy that could be available, but again, we don't know, is Aaron Rodgers. But a lot of people believe that he is going to be signed, sealed, and delivered to Denver because Nathaniel Hackett's the new head coach there. And it's Denver or bust or Green Bay. If you look at the market for whoever else is out there, the only quarterback I know of that's available via trade is Garoppolo. But at this stage in the game, is Garoppolo really the answer to your problems? He just feels more like a stopgap. He just feels more like a stopgap, a guy who will get you through the hump for a year. And maybe, just maybe, the Vikings, with Kevin O'Connell, who is supposed to be their new head coach, hasn't really been made official yet, but it's probably going to happen. Maybe they trade Kirk Cousins. But again, is Kirk Cousins the answer? And he's not. That's the point. Mm-hmm. And this year's quarterback class is weak. Matt Corral is weak. Malik Willis is weak. Sam Howell is weak. They're all weak quarterbacks right now. Pickett. None of those guys are projected are good enough in many people's eyes to go in the top 15.
Right.
Let alone top 5.
I think teams will overdraft a guy like Kenny Pickett. And I love Kenny Pickett. I really hope he does do good in the NFL. But I think a team like maybe the Broncos, who their quarterback situation is up in airs right now, and they have the 10th overall pick, I think they draft a guy like Kenny Pickett just because they need a quarterback.
But that's where the Jets come in, because whether you like it or not, I mean, Mike White showed enough flashes where teams could say, you know what? For a 3rd-round pick, I'll take my chance with Mike White.
Yeah.
If I bring in a capable enough veteran to back him up, there we go. And I think Douglas knows that. I think Douglas knows that. And I think that Douglas knows that there are going to be a few teams right now. For example, the Colts just released Carson Wentz, which we'll get into in a minute. Big Ben just retired in Pittsburgh. So that's out. I mean, think about other teams that might need a quarterback. We already said Denver. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going there. We have no clue if Aaron Rodgers is going there.
Mm-hmm.
The Commanders. I already forgot it. Right? The Commanders need even though I hate that name.
I'm not a fan either.
I would rather call it, now that I hear it, I don't hate it, but man, insurrectionist would have been so much better. Like, so much better of a name. Like, I remember when I had a fantasy football team and everybody goes, what's your team name? And I called my team name the Cleveland Carjackers because it's such a cool name. But in today's world, it would be offensive.
Sure.
So, I mean, right now, Mike White could be one of like the top 3 or 3 best options at quarterback if Watson's situation doesn't get resolved, if Wilson elects to stay in Seattle, and if Rodgers elects to stay in Green Bay. Because like I said, the only other team he's going to is Denver. He's not going to any other team.
Mike White played his in the 2.5 games he played this year. He earned himself a shot on a team, whether it's a backup or a starting role. He earned it because that's the way people look at it nowadays. Like, look at a guy like Taylor Heineke, perfect example.
He's not a starter. He's not
a starter, but in the Commanders' eyes, you know what?
I'm so sick of doing it. They're the Redskins, and be done with it.
I never understood why. I mean, look, I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna get into it. Mike had his last question. How about letting Foley Fadukasi walk, move JFM to D tackle, and then drafting Tibbs?
JFM is not a defensive tackle. My guess is I could see Saleh giving Jonathan Marshall more of a shot next year. Their last year's 6th-round pick. I think he'll give him more of a shot to be a defensive tackle. I like Foley Fatukazi. I wouldn't have a problem bringing him back. I don't know what he's worth on the market, but I think he is going to get paid. Because, I mean, I think he's a good run stuffer, but, he's not a guy that gets after the quarterback very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, in retrospect, you always want to have the good depth on the D line. But I also think this is all about getting a pass rusher more than anything. And I think if you have a rotation of Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers, Bryce Huff, and maybe whoever you draft, if you can get a pass rusher, because I think the Jets will come out with a pass rusher in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think they're going to sign one too. Robert Saleh likes using these rotational guys, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would love Kayvon Thibodeau on this team. So I have no problem drafting Thibodeau 4th overall. I don't know if he's going to be 4th there at number 4. That's the issue.
Carl Lawson, 2022 sacks over under 5.5. Over. Smash the over.
I'll go over, but I don't think it's going to be as big as you think it is. I think it's going to be like around 8.
I was going to say like 10.
I would say about 8. That makes sense, especially, the problem is he's going to come into the season and the Jet fans are going to have these ridiculously high expectations, forgetting that he's coming off a ruptured Achilles tendon.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give him a break. And I don't think the Jet fan wants to give him a break. I think the minute he struggles, they're going to want to run his ass out of town. And that's just not going to work. But one guy I definitely think that could come into his own in 2022 is Bryce Huff.
I hope so. I liked him a lot.
Bryce Huff has great speed off the edge. If he didn't get hurt, I think he would have easily gotten about 6 or 7 sacks this year. Easily. For a second-year player, that's not bad, especially a UDFA second-year player. That's actually pretty decent. Let's jump to the Carson Wentz stuff because this was a story that kind of bothered me. Well, it actually made me laugh in some ways, and I'll tell you why. Last year when the Colts got Carson Wentz, everybody loved this trade for Indianapolis, hated it for Philadelphia. They couldn't believe that Philadelphia just accepted, I think it was a 2nd and a 4th, if I'm not mistaken, for Carson Wentz. But I don't know.
It was like a 2nd and something else, yeah.
I think it was a 4th in last year's draft and a 2nd in this one. But on the condition that if he played 75% of the snaps, it was a 1st-round pick. When that stipulation was thrown in, I said it on this show. I said, so basically the Eagles got a 1st-round pick for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was no way the Colts – you don't trade and you don't put that kind of a stipulation in there if you have no intention of Carson Wentz playing 75% of the snaps.
Mm-hmm.
All right? You're trading for him to be your starter, which means you are not afraid to give up a 1st-round pick to get it. But we questioned that deal because I didn't think Carson Wentz was going to be that good. I wasn't a big fan. I was a bigger fan of that trade for Philadelphia than I was for the Colts because the Eagles were tired of him. There was a lot of stories going around about his attitude and he had a shitty attitude and everything. He didn't want to come off the field when he was told to come off when they were pulling him from games, and his teammates hated him. On top of that, they had Jalen Hurts, who was ready to take over as starting quarterback, and they got a 1st-round pick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you not like that trade for Philadelphia?
No, it worked out in hindsight, and the Eagles had a good season.
The worst situation for Philadelphia was they had to eat a huge cap hit in 2022 or 21. They had to eat a huge cap hit. That's it. For that one season, they had to eat like $30 million of dead cap money. And that goes to show you how much they had no faith in Carson Wentz because they were willing to eat a ton of dead cap space just to get him off the roster. That should have been red flag number 1 for Indianapolis. Okay? And everybody stood there, every fucking analyst on Fox Sports and ESPN and, everybody. Oh, this is a great trade for the Colts. The Colts are going to be a Super Bowl contender. On what planet would you think the Colts are going to be a Super Bowl contender with Carson Wentz as your quarterback? Okay? Well, he's back with Frank Reich, and Frank Reich did wonders with him. Yeah, well, he sure as shit didn't do a lot with him this year in Indianapolis. You want to cut Carson Wentz? Go ahead and cut Carson Wentz. But who's going to be the quarterback of this team in 2022 is my question. You don't have a first-round pick to trade now because you gave it to Philadelphia. So where do you go from here? Where's the end game? What's the end game? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo?
I say they must have a plan in mind already set because I'm looking at his stats. Yeah, he didn't have the greatest year, but it wasn't a bad year. 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
But here's the way I look at it like this, Clem. Week 18, Jacksonville Jaguar team, and you got destroyed. And Carson Wentz was part of the reason why you got destroyed. Because he was terrible in a game they needed to win to get into the playoffs. And he didn't get the job done. And I'm sure there's more to this story than that. I'm sure there's more to the story that the players don't really like him. Players think he's a dick. But Frank Reich, listen, I liked when they hired Frank Reich because he was put under shitty circumstances because that was right before, that was the year that Josh McDaniels screwed the Colts and went back to the Patriots. And I think that was also the same year that Andrew Luck retired. Mm-hmm. So you want to talk about a double whammy of shit that Frank Reich had to eat that first year? What he did with that team was nothing short of impressive that first year. But he hasn't done anything since.
Right.
The team is still a mediocre franchise. Okay? Last year, they thought Phillip Rivers was the answer until he wasn't. 2021, they thought Carson Wentz was the answer until he wasn't. Who's the answer now? So outside of Jimmy Garoppolo, who are you getting? You're not getting Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson if you're not giving up a first-round pick this year.
Right.
And you don't have one. So who is going to be the quarterback of this team in 2022? That's what I want to know.
It honestly, it was. I don't think it was a good move for them to get rid of Wentz like that. Like I said,
they haven't gotten rid of him yet. They haven't gotten rid of him yet, but the reports coming out, I think Schefter had reported it. No, I'm sorry, it was Chris Mortensen. Chris Mortensen reported that they're going to cut him because, first of all, they're going to try to trade him, and no one's going to take Carson. Mm-hmm. The only way, okay, let me rephrase that. You know how I would take Carson Wentz? If you trade him to Carolina for Sam Darnold. Then you can maybe you can get a Carson Wentz deal. Done. There's two quarterbacks that neither coach has faith in. Flip them to another team. But if I'm Carolina at this point, I don't want to take Carson Wentz. He's not going to do anything for me. Mm-hmm. But who is the quarterback of the Colts? And that's when I'm kind of drawing a blank because I don't think they have enough to get Rodgers. They don't have enough to get Russell Wilson, and they don't have enough to get Deshaun Watson. And if I'm Houston, why am I going to trade Deshaun Watson within the division?
Right. It's just not a. I like I said, these rumors of Carson Wentz being traded. I don't think they're. It's a smart move because, like I just said, Carson Wentz. Yeah, it wasn't. You didn't have the greatest year, but you didn't have a bad year either.
Like, but it wasn't good enough. And the thing is, Indianapolis is one of those teams that's always predicted to make a big run, and they never do it.
Right.
And you can honestly, and let's get this out of the way too. You can argue that the only reason why Carson Wentz's stats look like that is because Jonathan Taylor is the best running back in the NFL right now next to Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Jonathan Taylor, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. Michael Pittman, 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. But other than that, everyone else was dog shit on the team.
So the timing of this is interesting, which, again, maybe the Colts have something up their sleeve that we don't know about. But I am sick and tired of hearing how great the Colts organization is. Because right now, I just don't see it. I don't see what's so special about Indianapolis. Last year, again, it was, Phillip Rivers is going, and they're going to be amazing, and they're going to go. I don't know if they were predicted to go to the Super Bowl. I don't remember that. But everybody was on the Colts' nuts about Phillip Rivers last year. And Phillip Rivers was he was good. He wasn't elite, though. Mm. He wasn't a difference maker to get them to the playoffs. Let's take it a step further. This year, they make this blockbuster trade for Carson Wentz. And everybody thought it was an amazing move because he's going to be partnered up with Frank Reich. It was like the same reaction they gave when the Jets traded Darnold to Carolina. Oh, he's going to be with Matt Rule. Darnold's going to be an MVP. You're going to see he's with Joe Brady, who's a quarterback whisperer. Yeah, Joe Brady got fired after 9 weeks of the season, thanks to Sam Darnold. Carson Wentz was just average. He was just an average quarterback. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, if the Colts want to trade him for cap reasons or dump him for cap reasons, fine. But who's going to be the quarterback? Is it Jameis Winston? See? I rest my case. Like you literally just sealed my case.
The only one that would make sense in getting, because they keep, now that it's year 3, they're going to play this pick and plug quarterback situation. That the only thing is Jimmy G. That's it.
Yeah, but again, though, is Jimmy G going to lead you to the Super Bowl another year older? The answer is no. He's not.
And especially now with the weapons,
the Colts don't have good enough receivers for Jimmy G to lead them to the playoffs. Michael Pittman wasn't that great last year.
Okay.
T.Y. Hilton is another year older. I mean, like, why do people think that Jimmy Garoppolo is the missing link to these freaking teams' playoff hopes? Because he's the only guy out there? Well, shit, if I'm the 49ers, I'm asking for a first-round pick for him then.
I mean, honestly, I would be asking a very high pick for Jimmy G.
That is why I think at the end of the day, Mike White is getting traded. And I know Jeff fans are going to hate it because they just bought their Mike White jerseys a few months ago as knee-jerk reactions to that Bengal game. Well, you're the morons who spent over $100 on that jersey. Too bad, so sad. But at the end of the day, he is not a good NFL quarterback to start. He's not a guy that you can bank on to get you to the playoffs. He's not that kind of a quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay? Even the sun shines on a dog's ass someday. Mike White is exactly that guy. He was a guy who was great to have in that Bengal game, and he played well in that Colts game. Then he got hurt. Then he went back to being Mike White. Mm-hmm. So if Joe Douglas sees a team that's like desperate for a quarterback, he could pull the trigger on a Mike White deal.
Well, I mean, we know Joe Douglas got a 4th-round pick out of Chris Herndon. I have plenty of faith that he can do the same thing with Mike White.
Depending on what people want for him, I think he can get a 3rd. I actually think he could get multiple picks.
I think Mike White is going to be a better option than anything you might see day 3 in the draft.
If he builds up Mike White to like this, look, you saw what he did in the Cincy game. You saw what he was doing in the Indianapolis game before he got hurt. I know Buffalo, he didn't play well, but it doesn't matter.
He could sell it on the fact that Mike White beat the Super Bowl appearing Bengals.
Yeah.
They won the Super Bowl, and Mike White was able to beat them.
Joe Douglas can sell a fan to an Eskimo.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He can sell a fan to an Eskimo. So that only proves to me. And again, he's got a chip. He's got a chip in the big game right now, and I think it's Mike White. And you see the teams that need quarterbacks. Denver, Washington, Pittsburgh. We just mentioned it. What was the team? Colts.
Colts, yeah.
Colts. I mean, should we continue? I mean, do you want to run down the other teams that need a quarterback right now? I mean, I'm sure they're not too hard to find. He can take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Tampa needs a quarterback.
Yeah, technically.
I mean, Brady might come back. I don't know, but I mean, I think he's done. But
he should be done.
I mean,
hopefully he's done. Oh God, please be done.
I mean, shit, the Saints need a quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of teams need quarterbacks.
You don't think he's trying to, you don't think he's going to try to orchestrate a Mike White trade?
I would love Mike White for the New Orleans Saints.
The thing is, I hope Mike, and I like the guy. I hope he gets a chance. I mean, because he's not going to get a chance in New York with Zach Wilson.
No.
And the thing is, look, if Mike White can get you a pick, I don't think you say no to that.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. Like, again, I'll revert it back to what I just said. He got a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon. Chris Herndon sucks. I've never seen a worse tight end than Chris Herndon. I can only think of one other tight end worse than Chris Herndon. Jason Morrow. That's it.
I'm telling you right now, my bold prediction, Mike White is getting traded. He's going to tender on him, and he's going to trade him.
Yeah, I've no problems with that.
He's going to get interest. I'm telling you, he's going to get interest from Mike White. The thing about the Colts that just doesn't make any sense is, every year you're changing quarterbacks. When does it end? Mm-hmm. Who's next man up? Is it Andy? Do you really think Andy freaking Dalton is going to win you at the Super Bowl? That's why I'm telling you, man, I think Mike White's getting traded to the Colts. I am so convinced of this now.
Look, I'll always love Mike White no matter what he does, no matter where he goes. It'll be crazy, though.
Mark this tape down. Right. I'm telling you, he's getting traded. I think he's going to get traded to the Colts. I am convinced of it.
I wouldn't hate it. I really wouldn't hate it. And like you just mentioned, they will shell out to get a quarterback. Because like I just said, Mike White is maybe better than any quarterback that teams will see on day 2 or day 3 of the draft.
Because the thing with me is that I don't know who else is out there besides like the big 3 of Rodgers, Watson, and Wilson, where I'm like, okay, I could see them trading this guy. The Dolphins aren't trading Tua. The Patriots have Mac Jones. Buffalo, of course, has Josh Allen. Baltimore has Lamar Jackson. Cincy has Burrow. Maybe Baker Mayfield. Maybe.
I would say the free agent quarterbacks on the market right now are.
But think about it like this: if you're the Colts, if you're the Browns, you're not taking less than a 1st-round pick for Baker Mayfield, and you don't have a 1st-round pick. You don't have a 1st-rounder.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the free agents list right now. It's looking like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Tyrod, Jameis, Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Flacco.
No. They're not going to bring Jacoby Brissett back either. Again, though, I just think I think this is a make or break year for Frank Reich, and I just think that you're going in, if this does happen and Carson Wentz does get traded, or it doesn't get traded, but if he gets released for a cap hit, with all due respect, I hope you have a good backup plan because your job is on the line. This is your last year in Indianapolis. You're not going to be the head coach of Indianapolis again if you don't get to the playoffs. And then I think you need to get past the wild card round.
And even the thing is too, you have arguably who could have been the MVP this year in Jonathan Taylor. You have a good offensive line. You have an up and coming wide receiver in Michael Pittman. You got pieces there. Like it's not like you don't. It's like you know what, we got shit. Let's start it from the beginning. You got pieces. You got stuff there. Build around that now. And now you're getting rid of your quarterback who didn't have an awful season. In my eye, you didn't have an awful season. Didn't have a great season. Didn't have an awful season though. But now you're going to get rid of Carson Wentz for what? Jimmy Garoppolo, a potential rookie quarterback, Mike White. Is that really what you're going to do?
It's a lateral move, not a move that's going to get you ahead. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo and Carson Wentz are in the same. They're in the same league. I understand the 49ers went to the championship game this year, when they lost to the Rams. Part of the reason why they lost is Garoppolo threw a brutal interception at the worst possible time. But I can't sit here and say, there'll be people that say, oh, this is a phenomenal trade for the Indianapolis Colts, getting Jimmy Garoppolo. No, it isn't. It's not.
Is that a needle? Is Jimmy G really a needle mover for you? I feel like he's like Phillip Rivers, like Carson Wentz. He's a plug-and-play kind of guy, and he might not be here the next year because you desperately need a quarterback.
The Browns haven't made a decision on Baker Mayfield yet. We haven't heard from them. And maybe, but again, you're going to have to give up a lot to get Baker Mayfield. And you got to pay Baker Mayfield, too. You're going to have to pick up his 5th year, and you're going to have to pay him big money. I don't know. I think this is I don't want to say it's short-sighted, but it's also a deal that it's hilarious how you're already moving on from the guy after 1 year.
Yeah.
After you reunited him with the quarterback coach that got him to the Super Bowl and all that stuff, and you're already getting rid of the guy after 1 year.
Yeah, and it's not like, Carson Wentz is crazy old. He's just turned 29. It'd be one thing if he was like 33, 34. I'm like, okay, get rid of him maybe. Decently young still. Doesn't make any sense to me.
But we'll be getting into more conversations about the NFL offseason as we get closer and closer. Only about a month away till free agency, Klim. That's why, in a way, I'm a big fan of the extended week for the Super Bowl.
I'm excited, man. This is I love the NFL season, but I feel like, considering the Jets suck every year, this is where I get most excited about because I'm all about building this team correctly, building it to a Super Bowl contending team. And this is what I really look forward to every year as a Jets fan. I do my mock drafts. I try and predict on who the Jets are going to get and everything like that. And I can't wait for the free agency. And I can't wait to see what Joe Douglas does with this team this offseason.
All right, let's jump to the NBA. The NBA trade deadline was a few days ago, and obviously the big deal of the day was the Nets trading James Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks in a deal that I honestly love. I have no problem with this trade whatsoever. I think that, look, one thing I will give Sean Marks – now listen, let's not get it twisted, by the way. The Big Three was a disaster. There's no other way to get around it. I'm comfortable as a Nets fan to easily tell you that it was a disaster. That between Kyrie not getting vaccinated, Kevin Durant getting hurt, and James Harden just didn't want to be a leader. It was pretty obvious. He had no desire to be a leader. It was pretty obvious from the beginning that he just wanted to ride the coattails of Durant and Kyrie to a championship. Everybody knows that, okay? And he's going to do the same shit to Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, okay? Now, I'm not going to get it twisted that it was a disaster and it goes down as an epic fail. All right, that's fine. But now we move on from it. And Sean Marks did exactly what he should have done. You can't risk getting James Harden to free agency and he doesn't sign with you. You can't risk that. No way. You have to trade him. You don't have a choice. And if he's showing signs that he's not happy there, and quite frankly, just by after the trade, it seems like none of his teammates liked him. Doesn't seem like any of his teammates liked him, to be very honest.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's, you trade him for Ben Simmons. Now, I'm not a huge Ben Simmons guy. I'm not. I think he plays good defense. I think you got to get his confidence back. I think maybe pairing him up with Durant and everyone else might do that for him, especially with a guy like Patty Mills, who knows him pretty well from Team Australia and all that stuff. But it was a deal that had to be made. But the key part of this deal that I love is Seth Curry.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I am a huge Seth Curry fan. He was great. I know he wasn't having the greatest season in Philadelphia this year, but he basically replaces Joe Harris. Because we don't know if Joe Harris is going to be back this year. You get a guy like Seth Curry who can shoot the three, which is exactly what Joe Harris does. Joe Harris does a little bit better. But you replace Joe Harris with Seth Curry, which is what you want. Andre Drummond gives you some big man insurance because Claxton is always hurt, and they don't really have a lot of depth in the center position. So getting a guy like Andre Drummond, I think, is huge. And on top of that, you get 2 of the first-round picks back that you lost in the Harden trade.
It's like you mentioned, I have no problems with this trade whatsoever. And you and I both said it when it happened that we didn't really like trading all those guys for James Harden. Yeah, we didn't like it, but it's like, how can we be mad about James Harden? It's like he was here. It's James Harden. How can you be mad about having James Harden on your team? Me and you never really liked it, But now that we have, I'm not a big fan, like even you mentioned, I'm not a big fan of Ben Simmons, but what he brings to this team is defense. I feel like that's the main key here for the Nets.
It was an Achilles heel for the Nets. The Nets have not been a great defensive team, but I think pairing him with and having him under Durant's leadership, I think will be really important for him. And I think it will get him out of that funk.
No, it absolutely will. And even when KD comes back, you'll have Seth Curry come off the bench with guys like Patty Mills, Nicholas Claxton, LaMarcus Aldridge. Like these are that's a solid bench right there. And if Joe Harris ever comes back too.
But here's the thing: at the end of the day, Clem, you got to get Ben Simmons on the court soon.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. I understand he needs to get. I know he hasn't played all year, so he's got to get into some kind of game shape. I totally get that. You need to work his ass to the bone, and he needs to get conditioned. Even if he starts out playing 10 minutes a night, I don't care what it is. You've got to get him back on the court. You got to get a return on your investment right away.
Yeah.
And I think, because the Nets are free falling. They've lost 11 straight. They have been freaking terrible this year. They're still in the, it's amazing. They're still in the 8th spot for the playoffs, which means that I think they're going to have a huge run in them pretty soon, because I don't think they're going to be this bad the entire season. But it was a trade that had to be made. And this is why Sean Marks is one of the best general managers in basketball. He saw an opportunity and he just took it. Now there was a lot of stories about guys that they wanted. They wanted T-Bull, they wanted Tyrese Maxey, I think was the other guy they wanted. But they get Curry, they get Simmons, and they get Drummond. Simmons is under contract through 2025. You have Seth Curry under contract for another year. I think Drummond. I don't know if Drummond's under contract after this year, but I don't really remember. But the key part of it is, too, you get draft picks back.
Yes.
You hemorrhaged your future to get Harden. At least you're starting to get that back into the fold in some way, shape, or form. And
I'll say the one thing we know about Sean Marks is he can find the good players deep in the draft. Even going back to guys like Karis LeVert and Jared Allen, he found those players deep in the draft. And even a guy look at Nicholas Claxton. He's not a bad player coming off the bench for a big man. Claxton is doing a fantastic job for the Nets this year.
Now, where this all heads, I don't know. At the end of the day, I hope the Nets go as far and Harden does not take the Sixers to a title. But who knows? It is possible. I mean, I think the Sixers are still flawed, but I still think, they're still a legitimate contender for the title, though, no question.
Right.
But right now, I think it was a deal that had to be done. You took advantage of an opportunity to get rid of a guy who was a cancer in James Harden. It was pretty. You know who he reminded me of? Remember the playoffs where Derek Jeter broke his ankle against the Tigers, and he couldn't come back, and the team was just deflated after that when they lost him for the rest of the postseason.
Yes. And
then they were kind of looking at a guy like Robbie Cano to be that leader.
He never was.
And Robbie was not that leader. He didn't want any part of it. He didn't want the job.
Right.
I see the same thing in Harden that I saw in Robbie Cano that time. Harden was he just wanted to ride the coattails of Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Now, look, I respect Kyrie's decision at the end of the day not to get vaccinated. But then I ask myself at the same time, how much of this is really about what's going on in the world and how much of this is really about Kyrie just staying in the news? See, those are the things I wonder about. Because if you go to Brooklyn and you partner up with Kevin Durant and you partner up with James Harden, then you shouldn't be letting a fucking vaccine get in the way of you winning a championship.
Right.
Sorry, but that's just my opinion. And it could come off as a selfish opinion, and that's fine. But you brought those guys there. You all went there for the sole purpose of winning a championship in Brooklyn. And all of a sudden, Kyrie's like, yeah, but I don't want to get vaccinated. So screw the championship. And okay. And again, I respect your decision. If it's based on science, if it's based on what you don't feel comfortable with, that's fine. But I've never heard Kyrie Irving say that once. I've never heard Kyrie Irving say, I don't trust the vaccine. I just don't trust it. I don't feel we need it. But again, the problem is you put your team at a disadvantage. And when you only have Kyrie Irving playing half a season, and you don't have Joe Harris, and you don't have Kevin Durant now until after the All-Star break, the team's going to suffer. The team is going to suffer. So here's the deal. And I would say this to Marks too. This may not be your year in Brooklyn. You may just have to accept it. Shit's gone wrong. Everything. Durant getting hurt is a huge blow. Harden didn't want to play here. Kyrie doesn't want to get vaccinated. You just might be up Shit's Creek on this one. Maybe you need to start fielding offers for Kyrie. But then you might piss off Durant. You don't want that either because you need Kevin Durant.
No, you absolutely do. And, I mean, it also, too, like, when is it going to be on Steve Nash? You know? Like,
well, I would have fired Steve Nash by now. Because, quite frankly, it's inexcusable for the Nets to be this bad, where you're losing to teams like Washington and Sacramento. And you're not even losing. You're getting blown out. You cannot. It is unacceptable. I don't give a shit how many injuries you have to be playing the Boston Celtics at home and be down 28-2. Unacceptable. That is on Nash. 1,000% on Steve Nash. I would have fired him by now. I would have tried to go with a different direction because I would have like, this guy, I mean, this isn't working. This guy's lost, like, or worse yet, I would have reamed his ass out in my office if I was Sean Marks.
No, definitely. It's unacceptable. It really is unacceptable.
But Marks comes back after the Harden fiasco, and he knows now to just admit that the big three just wasn't working. So I'm going to trade Harden now because I don't want to lose him for nothing when he becomes a free agent. He doesn't sign with my team. And I get back 3 players. Everybody forgets that Ben Simmons is a good player. They can't get the playoffs last year out of their mind.
Right.
But Ben Simmons is still a good player. Plays great defense. You get three good players, and you get 2 draft picks back to keep for your future. So now the trade, although the trade is bad still, the original Harden trade is bad, softens the blow. So the Nets did a great job on it. I love this trade for Brooklyn. I like this trade too for Philadelphia, so don't get it twisted. I mean, I think if Harden wants out that bad, let him go to Philadelphia then. Let him be someone else's problem. Now, the funny part is that, and I thought about this a lot, right? So the Knicks were quiet at the deadline once again, outside of the Reddish trade they made a few weeks ago. And there was a rumored deal on the table, but I think with like the Lakers and I forgot the other team. And it fell through, basically. I want to say it was like Alec Burks and someone else going to the Lakers, and then someone was going to the Pistons. I don't remember what it was. So we have another trade deadline where nobody wants to go to the Knicks. CJ McCollum, who was rumored to be on the Knicks' radar, actually pushed for a trade to the Pelicans. Let me say that again for all the people who didn't hear that. CJ McCollum, who was rumored to be courted by the Knicks, pushed for a trade to the Pelicans to play alongside Brandon Ingram and, whenever he comes back, Zion Williamson. That is all you need to know about the state of the New York Knicks right now. And the fact is, and I hate to say it, Nick, actually, I don't hate to say it because you guys are cocky fucks and you deserve it. Okay? You fans are cocky fucks who think that everybody wants to go play there until they don't. And if you don't believe me, let's look at the laundry list of players that were supposed to go play there and never did.
Oh, can you say these names again? I just want to.
Sure.
Yeah, I need to listen to them because it's so good. Because Knicks fans are delusional, just like the rest of New York fans.
You know what it is, and I hate to use this correlation. This might be wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's like reading the names at 9/11 that perished, and it's so that's always one of the most depressing. It'll always be the saddest day, one of the worst days in American history. But it has that kind of like not nearly that kind of feel, but. It's just like when you hear the names of like all these famous, ridiculously good players who were rumored to come to the Knicks, and they never do. They never do. Never.
Right. Oh
okay.
My God, it's so funny.
It started with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Right before they were going to be free agents. You and I even thought that. We thought they were signed, sealed, and delivered to go to Madison Square Garden. And then they pivot and go to Brooklyn. If you even want to go back further, you can go back to the decision by LeBron James. Remember that shit?
That's why I was a Knicks fan. I used to be a Knicks fan. That's when I was like, oh, he's coming to the Knicks.
Everybody thought LeBron was coming to the Knicks, that it was marketing and everything. And then the Heat came out of nowhere and said, fuck you. We have Wade and Bosh, and that's it. Okay? Let's continue. Damian Lillard's another guy that everybody thought was coming to the Knicks until he didn't. Zion is a guy that everybody thought was coming to the Knicks, that he was unhappy in New Orleans. And, whatever. He hasn't played on the court enough to be unhappy in New Orleans. How could he possibly be unhappy? He's getting paid to sit on the bench injured.
It's just funny when we look back at it. And you and I, when we were at the other network, we talked about it. We were like, what makes the Knicks so attractive? The Knicks fans already had it in their minds that they were getting Kyrie, KD, and they were going to draft Zion Williamson with the first overall pick. Tough shit. They got the third pick thanks to the lottery. And RJ Barrett's not playing bad. He's actually a good player, and he's developing into a good player.
But think about it like this. So let's continue. Okay? Who else was there? Remember last year after the Mavericks got eliminated from the playoffs? And right away the Knicks fans started believing that Luka Doncic was going to come to New York. Yeah, the big three of Randall. Randall's not part of a big three. Doncic and Zion. There's your big three, guys, and that's it. And we're going everywhere. And what happened? Doncic signed a supermax.
Donovan Mitchell.
Still waiting for this magical, mystical Donovan Mitchell trade come through. I haven't seen that one yet either. McCollum was the latest guy that was rumored to be on the Knicks' radar. Until he wasn't. And what I find at the end of the day is, and I know I'm right about this too, Knicks fans are insanely jealous of the Brooklyn Nets.
Yes.
Think about all the guys that have come through Brooklyn over the last couple of years since Sean Marks took over. Maybe not necessarily the first year because they were rebuilding. They were a craptacular team because Billy King had completely destroyed their future by getting Garnett and Pierce. Which, listen, I love that trade when he made it. Don't get me wrong. I did like that trade a lot, but it was pretty obvious that he had destroyed the team's future. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin,
Marcus
Aldridge, James Harden.
Ben Simmons now.
Right? Karis LeVert was another guy rumored to go to the Knicks until he wasn't. Went to the Cavs.
But even those guys, those guys aside, look what the Nets were able to do to develop. Jared Allen is turning into one of the best centers in the league right now.
Dude, Joe Harris is the best 3-point shooter in the league.
Joe Harris, the Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, all these guys were on the Knicks.
Okay.
On the Nets.
Now, okay, good. Durant, Irving, Harden, Griffin, Aldridge, it goes on and on. Who the hell has been on the Knicks over the last 3 years that can top that?
No one.
Randall doesn't even top that. And that was the best acquisition that team made. The Knicks haven't had a bona fide superstar on their roster since Melo. Melo and maybe Stoudemire. Because Stoudemire wanted to come here. Stoudemire is one of those very few guys who said to himself, I like it here. I want to be here. I want to be a New York Knick. And he did. And he played well for the Knicks. He was a great addition to that team.
Yeah, when he wasn't injured, Stoudemire was fantastic.
He was a terrific leader for that team. He was an all-around good player. He still had plenty left in the tank. But yeah, the injuries were an issue, but nothing to go crazy about, though. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So who else has been on that team over the last 3 years that can match what the Brooklyn Nets have done. And quite frankly, the Brooklyn Nets have accomplished a lot more than the Knicks over the last few years.
No, and even to that point, too, even when Melo was still a huge name in the NBA, big on the Knicks, no one came to play with him. That should be a red light, like, what the fuck's going on here? That no one wanted to play with your star player, with Carmelo Anthony, who will go down as one of the best NBA players of all time. That no one wanted to come and play with him. There should have been red flags, like, what the hell's going on? Why?
That's funny you mentioned that. Remember, that was the year that it was Melo, Chris Paul, because they were best friends. Oh. And there was one other guy part of that three, and I cannot remember for the life of me who it is.
Was it LeBron? Was it his time done in Miami?
It was LeBron. I'm pretty sure it wasn't LeBron, but I cannot remember who it was. The first name that comes to my mind is Paul George, but I'm not sure if that's it. I don't remember if it was Paul George.
Definitely Chris Paul, though.
Chris Paul was definitely on that list because when Chris Paul was a free agent, remember when he was killing it for Phoenix?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he was a free agent and everybody thought he was coming to the Knicks until he didn't.
Exactly.
Knicks fans just have to accept the fact that Madison Square Garden is not an attractive environment anymore. It's just not what it used to be. Back in the days of Ewing and Oakley and freaking Charles Smith.
John Starks, all those guys.
Yeah, John Starks, whoever, Anthony Mason, none of it. Those days are over for the Knicks. And that is all you need to know about that franchise right now.
It's crazy. It really is crazy when you think.
And now it's gotten to the point though where nobody knows what Leon Rose is doing. Last year, Leon Rose, I thought, put together a great team.
He did, and look, they were the first seed in the playoff in the East last year.
I thought he put together a great team. I mean, on paper, it didn't look that good, but they bought into Thibodeau right away.
Exactly, and
that's why they became a superior. They were a tremendously good defensive team. And now it looks like they basically just hit their peak last year. And now this year, they just hit a wall. They made no significant additions to the roster. They brought back the same players. The only two free agent additions they really brought in were Evan Fournier, who they totally overpaid for $72 million, and Kemba Walker, who they got for a good rate. They got a good deal for him. Hyped him up as the king of New York because of a couple of games at UConn and high school in the Bronx. And they were barely a month into the season playing like shit.
Right.
Until they made him the scapegoat for all their problems.
Like, when you look at it, we don't know what the Knicks did this offseason because why they didn't go after anyone big because they, like you mentioned, they made no needle moving moves. Look, they brought in Evan Fournier. Woo! You brought in Kemba Walker. Woo! Big. Those were nothing moves. And
Clem, here's how bad. Clem, here's how bad the season's gone. They just gave Julius Randle a 4-year contract extension for like $160 million, which at the time was a pretty good deal. Mm-hmm. Depending on what other guys got, the Randle deal coming off his year last year was a very good deal. And he's completely alienated this fan base. He is completely, he's playing better now. But it's like a perfect example of how bad this season has gone for the Knicks. They get a huge win over Golden State the other night in Golden State. They come out with a big win, right?
Mm-hmm.
They come back home, or they go to Portland playing a team that just traded away one of their best players in C.J. McCollum, who don't really have much of anything on the table, and they blow a 25-point lead and lose by 12. They lose by 12. That is terrible. Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know, I haven't seen enough out of Emmanuel Quickly where I'm like, this kid is the real deal. Obi Toppin only knows how to do windmill dunks and nothing more. Randle has completely alienated the fan base. And on top of that, he's showing he does not have the tough skin for New York.
Mm-hmm.
Fournier's been a streaky shooter. Kemba had 3 games in a row where he didn't even score a point. And then the worst part about this is You traded a first-round pick to get Cam Reddish, and you don't even play the guy. The guy barely plays. You couldn't even trade. Nobody wants your guys. Like, think about that. Everybody thought, yeah, you got to trade Julius Randle, got to trade him. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants Evan Fournier's terrible contract. Nobody wants Kemba Walker. Nobody wants Alec Burks.
It's when it comes to the Knicks, it's like we mentioned, like they did nothing to enhance this team for this coming season. You couldn't really believe that Julius Randle was going to average like 27 points again this year. It wasn't going to happen. So now that you put all your eggs into Julius Randle, which was fine off of last year. He did a good job, but the Knicks in general should have realized that Julius Randle isn't the 26, 27 point averaging point guy. It's not him. So you have to still build around him and RJ Barrett. And I strongly believe they could do that because RJ Barrett's having a good season. Julius Randle's starting to pick it up now. But you didn't do anything except for sign Evan Fournier, sign Kemba Walker, and then make a trade for Cam Reddish, who, hot take, not that great.
But, I mean, you traded a first-round pick for the guy.
Exactly.
And the thing is, Barrett's a good player. I like RJ Barrett. He's a good player for them. But Mitchell Robinson really hasn't developed into the elite center that they were thinking, even though I thought he would become a good player, actually.
So did I.
You know, Toppin has been a guy who comes off the bench, but all he does is like windmill dunks. And like the thing about the Knicks is they're so fucking cocky. Like every time they do something good, it's like all they do is showboat the whole time. I mean, it's like Knicks fans want to believe these guys are going to come here. And maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe they will. Someday. But right now, nobody's coming here. Nobody big time is coming here. And the fact is that right now, Madison Square Garden is not the place to be. Like, you can make fun of the Nets all you want. Like, you can make fun of the Nets all you want. But the Nets have had more star power in the last 2 years on this roster than the Knicks have had in the last 5.
And that's what the Knicks are lacking, really. And I've said it. I said it coming into this season. You know, when it was like, oh, they should sign this guy and trade away for that guy. No, you build it the way like the Nets did. The Nets had absolute garbage when they made that Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce trade. They had nothing. So what did the Nets do? They found guys like Jared Allen. They found guys like Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, D'Angelo Russell at the time, and built it into a place where like, oh shit, I want to come play for the Brooklyn Nets. And
I totally forgot about D'Angelo Russell. Thank you.
Yeah, him too.
I forgot about him. D'Angelo Russell is better than half the guys that have been on the Knicks in the past few years.
But those Nets players brought the Nets up to a place where it's like, oh shit, I want to come play for the Brooklyn Nets. And that's why guys like Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Ben Simmons are like, okay, now I want to come play for the Brooklyn Nets because I see where this franchise is going, and they did it correctly. The Knicks can do that. They can do it. They have the pieces with RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. And if you maybe get the coaching right with Emmanuel Quickley and Mitchell Robinson, you could have that team in a way. It just has to be all put together, and it's not right now. It really isn't, and I feel bad for them because they have good players. I think they do have good players.
But now, what the next phase is going to be? They're going to turn on Thibodeau eventually.
Yep.
Thibodeau's a guy who wears out his welcome pretty quickly. You know, if he's not winning right away, the players don't like to play for him because when it's not working, or they don't want to deal with his tough, demeanor and everything like that. The thing is this team has no identity right now. And listen, maybe it wasn't necessarily a bad thing that the Knicks decided not to make a trade, because you're going to trade for somebody, but is that guy really going to make you that much better? You see, those are the things I want to know.
Right.
But in reality, what I'm starting to get to is I don't think anybody wants to play here.
And they, like I said earlier, like they should have figured that in their heads when their star player Carmelo Anthony couldn't get any of his buddies, couldn't get anyone to come play with him when he was here.
I mean, that's a pretty telling indictment of the franchise. It's not even really about the players anymore. It's about the organization. It's about the franchise. That nobody wants to come to the Mecca. Everybody says the same shit about Madison Square Garden. Oh my God, it's the greatest arena ever to play in. Then why don't you want to play here? If it's such a great arena to guys like Chris Paul and all these other players, why don't they want to come here full time?
Because they know something that we don't know in the higher ups of the Knicks organization, that they don't want to come deal with this bullshit.
Because at the same time also, Klim, and I think you'll agree with me too, is the pressure gets ratcheted up 10 times more than for a star player like Damian Lillard or whoever who steps on the court in a New York Knicks uniform at Madison Square Garden compared to the Brooklyn Nets, where, look, I'll admit it, nobody cares about the Brooklyn Nets. They're not in the same league as the New York Knicks. We know that. We don't need to be. I don't even care about that. I don't care that we're not talked about the way the Knicks are. Knicks fans love being the Kings of New York, but when they're losing, they don't want to be the Kings of New York anymore.
No, exactly. And Knicks fans are so quick to turn on if you're a star player and come here and you don't perform well for Knicks fan standards, it's over for you. You talk about pressure. It's not. That's why a guy like Julius Randle was a great signing, because he wasn't a star player, but he was a good player. And what did he do his first year? He exceeded expectations because people weren't expecting him to do good. He exceeded everyone's expectations. And now what's he doing here? People expected him to be the star now. People expected him to be like the next Carmelo Anthony for the Knicks. And
he's been anything but.
He went back down to average, and people are like, what the fuck, Julius Randle?
And the thing is, again, nobody wants Alec Burks. Even though Alec Burks is a pretty decent player. Nobody wants Alec Burks. Nobody wants Evan Fournier. Nobody wants Kemba Walker. Nobody wants any of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the sad fact. The Knicks got dealt a harsh dose of reality at the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants Nerlens Noel. Think about that. Everybody was like, oh, no, all deals are on the table. All deals are on the table. The Knicks couldn't make one deal. The Nets turned around, flipped James Harden for 3 players and 2 draft picks. And the Knicks couldn't make one deal. Whether they wanted to is another story. But that is very, very telling about the state of the New York Knicks franchise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Klim, before we get out of here, you got anything?
2 things. Before we get into the last thing I wanted, because this weekend, 5 days away, Elimination Chamber. So we'll hold off on that for a second. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the halftime show.
Oh, shit. We totally forgot to talk about that.
I know. I thought as soon as John left, I was like, fuck, the halftime show. We didn't even talk about it.
I loved everything about it. Like, I thought it was really good. I thought Snoop and Dre were amazing. I thought Eminem lip synced, but I thought he was still pretty good. I didn't give a shit about him kneeling. I didn't care. Everybody's making.
I didn't even notice it at first. Like I
didn't notice either, which only proves to me, just proves to you that I just didn't care. I think people were blowing it out of proportion. That's just my opinion on that. I'm a huge Kendrick Lamar fan, so I thought he was actually really good. The only thing that was a little weird, and maybe I don't know what you thought of it. Did you notice that the performers were only singing to one side of the stadium?
That's what me and my friend said, because like when they went in that little like apartment building or whatever, the people behind that thing, they couldn't see that.
Yeah.
They couldn't see it.
I thought it was a cool concept, but I think it could have been done a little bit better. Maybe that was the whole point,
Maybe it was. Here's me personally, I didn't think it was a fantastic halftime show. I love Dre, I love Snoop, Eminem, I love all those guys. And Mary J.
I mean, listen, compared to other ones, no, it wasn't nearly as good as, like, for example, one of my personal favorites is Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars did a fantastic one. I thought
that was at MetLife. I thought he was phenomenal at MetLife.
Yeah, he did it. I thought Lady Gaga had a better
Lady
performance.
Gaga was really good. What was the one that was recent?
Trying to think.
I didn't like last year's with The Weeknd.
I didn't like The Weeknd's either.
The Weeknd was terrible. He's just weird. He's just too weird for me.
I just thought that it could have been better. You know what I did like though? I liked how Dr. Dre was like DJing and doing the whole stuff from there. Yeah. I was like, that's pretty cool.
I just wish they would have played Nothing But a G Thing. Then I would have been
that's what I'm saying. They missed so many crucial songs, and Eminem only did one song. I'm like, come on, what are they doing here?
I would have played, honestly, in honor of the late Warren G, I would have played Regulate. Regulate is such a good song. Like, if they would have done that, like, that would have been...
There could have been
awesome.
But what was funny was, like, the memes coming out afterwards, and it was, like, about 50 Cent. It was like, wow, the inflation, it made him $1. Like...
Yeah, he was a fat bastard, man. He
got big. He got real big.
I know he works out a lot, but he definitely put on weight. Like
And the other memes of like, oh, they were like, damn, Tupac didn't come out. I guess he's really dead. I was like, God damn.
But overall, I thought it was a very solid halftime show. I really liked it. I wanted to hear Nothing But a G Thing, or I would have loved to have heard Gin and Juice.
That's what I'm saying. Like I feel like they missed some crucial songs there, and it was
out of time though. And then like Mary J. Blige was there, like and everything. But I thought overall it was a solid halftime show. Not one of my favorite. My favorite one probably of all the ones I've seen is Bruno Mars, because I've seen Bruno Mars live in concert, and he is a terrific performer. Like he is an unbelievable performer. So. The other thing too is this was the first year in a while I thought the commercials were pretty decent.
Yeah, these were good commercials. Definitely some good.
Like, probably my favorite one because I'm a huge fan of her, and like not to say like stalker vibes, but Anna Kendrick is like one of my favorite actresses.
Oh, love Anna.
So the commercial she did with the Barbie Dream House for like Rocket Mortgages, I thought was really good.
There were a few good ones. I like the Sopranos one with Jamie Lynn Sigler and
I didn't know who was driving the car at first, and then I was like, oh, it's Jamie Lynn Sigler. I thought that was pretty good. And that had to have been the diner they went to when they died, when he supposedly gets killed.
I was waiting for like the commercial to just cut out to black real quick. I was like, that would have been great if they did that.
Yeah,
but there were some really good ones in there. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but that one stands out to me, and I did like that one.
Yeah, the Michelob Light commercials I didn't really get too much with like the bowling alley with Peyton Manning.
And I didn't know some of those.
I didn't even know who the other people were.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, one of them was Jimmy Butler. Obviously, we recognize Jimmy Butler, but I unfortunately didn't know who the two women were.
Yeah, I didn't know who they were either. So, but yeah. But overall, I thought the halftime show was very good, and I thought that the commercials were pretty decent. One other thing before we get out of here. Have you watched any of the Olympics?
I watched some curling. I watched some of the hockey, and other than that, nothing really.
My favorite, honestly, I've been watching it a lot more than I'm accustomed to. And one event that was really good, I don't know if you saw like the snowboard race.
No, I did not.
Oh my God, dude, it's so good because these guys take the turns and they freaking eat it like bad.
Really?
Yeah, like one guy got really badly hurt, like hurt his knee, taking I think it was a snowboarder, because the turn is so sharp that these guys kind of lose control of the board a little bit because they have to turn. It's like a hook turn.
Right.
And these guys go really fast and they go to make that turn, and the American guy crashed right into the freaking wall. Like it's a very cool event. I've actually been watching a lot more. Like I really like the speed skating. I like speed skating a lot.
I've been catching that here and there, and I'm just like, this is pretty good. I like this.
All right. I liked like speed skating. I've been watching a lot of USA hockey.
Undefeated.
Yeah, they've been pretty good.
Undefeated, man.
Good. And then I've been watching a lot of the snowboarding. I did see Shaun White. So Shaun White, I felt bad for him, man. I really did. I felt really bad for him. That guy, he's an icon. He's an icon.
I would say there's a few once in a generation guys, especially for like the Olympics, like because it's every 4 years that we get to be like, oh, we're getting excited to watch Shaun White, or we get excited to watch like Michael Phelps. Like in things that we like, don't highlight. Like, obviously, basketball and hockey, and whenever the Olympics come around, we know who the good one. Like we know it's United States. But when you can draw the eye from like certain things, like for example, for curling, men's USA curling, like everyone watches curling now. Like,
but here's
like
the
a
one
guy
thing I'll think about.
Transcended snowboarding. Like.
Here's the one thing I'll say though about it, with snowboarding, because now that Shaun White's probably going to retire, you got to understand too, these kids from Australia, like all these other countries, they know Shaun White. Right. So I'm sure sharing a half pipe with Shaun White during a competition for them is like, holy shit.
And especially because these kids are young, like they're 17, 18 years old kids. They probably grew up being like, I want to be like Shaun White. And now they got the opportunity to share this, like you said, the pipe with him.
Like, think about the day that, like, when Brandon Eccles intercepted Tom Brady, and they were like, dude, it's Tom Brady. Like, you just intercepted Tom Brady. Yeah. But now what you'll see is it's going to slowly migrate from Shaun White to Chloe Kim.
Yes.
Chloe Kim is amazing. Like, she's absolutely amazing. Like, everything. She's just awesome. Awesome. But, yeah. And then I was actually watching, I didn't know this was an event, the one-person bobsled.
I was watching that yesterday.
I was watching that. Like, I like the Olympics, man. I do watch it. Like, I watch it a lot. Like, I definitely get into it, like, watching. Like, I don't, like, get super into it, but I do watch it. It's definitely entertaining. At least to me, it's been entertaining.
It's definitely good, especially because, like we said, like, we have good play. We have good teams. I mean, yeah, we're the United. We're supposed to be, like, good at everything. Mm-hmm. But it's like, USA hockey, men's hockey, undefeated. I wasn't expecting that at all. So it makes it a little bit interesting. Curling. Very interesting to watch. The bobsledding. That's been very interesting to watch. All this stuff has been like whoa, like okay, I can get behind all this.
Yeah. So the Olympics end this week, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been very entertaining. So I've had zero complaints with the Olympics. So, all right, everyone, that's going to do it for this episode of Moffett on the Mic for this Monday evening. A special thank you, of course, to the one and only John Sheeran, who covers the Cincinnati Bengals for the Cincy Jungle blog, courtesy of SB Nation. Definitely check out his work. Clem, I always forget the name of his podcast.
It's like the Bengals Orange and Black Insider.
Okay. So definitely check out. He does have a podcast as well, but definitely check out his work, courtesy of the Cincy Jungle SB Nation blog. It is a lot. It is really great insight. And, I've never seen a guy so cool, calm, and collected a day after losing the Super Bowl. But, I just – more power to him, because we New Yorkers would probably be tearing shit up everywhere if we lost the Super Bowl.
Like I said, if the Jets lost the Super Bowl yesterday, I can guarantee you we wouldn't be doing a show today.
Yeah. So again, a special thank you to John for coming on our show as always, and just being a good friend to the show and hanging out with us. We really do appreciate it. Clem, thank you for holding it down like you normally do. Are we back next week, or what's the deal?
Next week I cannot do.
Okay.
Cannot do next week.
All right, so we're going to take a week off, and we'll come back the following week, and we'll hopefully have a guest, and hopefully we'll get into the end of this baseball strike, and hopefully things will go, or the lockout, and hopefully things go back to normal. But until then, on behalf of Clem, this is Craig. This has been the Moffett on the Mic show. Wherever you are, stay safe. Follow the show on Instagram, as always, at Moffett on the Mic, and on my Facebook page as well. Follow Clem and the A1 Sports Network on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Wherever you are, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the week. And have a great one, everybody. And we'll probably be back in about 2 weeks. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Take care.